All right, what's up, everybody? Thanks for joining. It's going to be a late night stream. It's been pretty busy. More than pretty busy. We'll talk about that a little later. But thanks so much for joining. Happy Wednesday. CPI day. Inflation day. We'll get into it in a moment. Thanks, everybody.
Gotta get realistic price. If they're upstream price.
I see Professor Dario in the chat, Reggie44, Lena Sandoval. Good to see everybody. It's a pretty cold night in Manhattan, not gonna lie. Very, very chilly. It's also quite windy too. Hopefully everybody had a good CPI Inflation Wednesday. Now the good news, which we'll talk about, is we continue to have year-over-year declines in CPI, but shelter costs really continue to make up the bulk of the increase in inflation. Hey, what's going on, Todd? This is Happy Hump Day. Good to see you. We're right outside the Aston Martin showroom, East 57th Street. We have some NVIDIA, AI, and nuclear energy news. Nina, what's going on? And Park Avenue is finally fully paved all the way down. Forlorn Wanderer, good to see you. You know, let's swing by 520 Park Avenue. Right here is the Four Seasons Hotel. That is set to reopen pretty soon. But we'll just do the quick audio and visual check. So if you guys can hear us and if we're streaming in 1080p, just go ahead and give a thumbs up in the chat, and we'll get started here in a moment. I see Ed Podke. Good to see you, Ed. Hopefully everything is going well in upstate New York. Emma, Doc 7, Terry. Simple Life is here. Ibrahim Azam. Always a pleasure. What's up, Chris? I've been doing pretty well, but oh man, am I tired today. Crazy day, very, very busy day. Dollar Bill is here. Now, I think I've said this before, but you know, I'll try to keep politics out of it, but this is probably the reason. The day after Election Day, business, particularly in New York, in terms of the real estate business, has just all floodgates have been opened. Just people that I've been trying to get a hold of to make offers on properties, to acquire larger investments here. Everybody has pretty much been coming around all at the same time, making offers, signing contracts, really getting things done. And today we hammered out, well, a deal is never done until it's closed, but we were able to hammer out and get an offer accepted on another $2.5 million deal. So this may be, like a $16 million month for us. New York City, Manhattan has just exploded with people coming back into the marketplace. Now, I think there was a little bit of timidness, to be specific, from some buyers, kind of seeing what has been going on in New York City, kind of getting cold feet. But perhaps with this new administration, they feel that maybe things are going to be a little bit safer. Maybe, law and order in major cities will be restored. And this kind of goes along with my main thesis for San Francisco. And again, I don't really know how the SF market is doing right now, if it's picked up or not. I'll have to talk to some residential agents there as well as some commercial agents. But I could tell you 100%, these people should probably move a little bit further away from that big Mack truck that's about to bulldoze them. But I could tell you with 100% certainty that the New York City market has picked up significantly. So I've always said the main variable in the equation, right? The market has been assigning, I would say, a fixed variable valuation to cities like San Francisco and New York, because the narrative has been, San Francisco is never going to turn around. San Francisco is going to be crime-ridden forever. New York, with the migrant crisis, it's going to be crime-ridden forever. But those are really what I like to call non-fixed variables. Those could probably be problems that are easily solved. And essentially what the old saying, not only on Wall Street but just in general, is you should buy when there's fear in the market. So the people that I think who've been buying in New York City and buying in San Francisco throughout this depressed time, right, when residential valuations have been down while commercial real estate valuations have been down, I really do believe over the next 4 years they're going to be rewarded. That is my thesis there. Hey, JC, thank you so much for your 50 ZAR donation. Appreciate you. Just grab a coffee. I will. Hopefully you've been doing well with this Bitcoin bull run we've been having. Now, the Louis Vuitton store, I think, relocated across the street, right next to Tiffany, and they just kind of unveiled the holiday display. And I think it looks really, really great. DC322 says, Tom, San Francisco will get a new mayor, and Oakland is getting a new mayor and district attorney. That's really, really great news, because San Francisco is one of the greatest cities in the U.S. You can see some of the stores right now putting up some Christmas decorations. Professor Dario, good to see you. Daryl says, Tom, there's going to be no Saks Fifth Avenue display. Yeah, it's a little bit of a bummer, isn't it? But what can we do? I guess they couldn't find a sponsor for it. FB, good to see you. Yeah, I heard about that. It is what it is, I guess. Josie is here. Welcome. Alan says, Tom, did you get a chance to play around with Apple Intelligence yet? And if so, what do you think? I haven't. I knew I said that I was going to allocate some time last weekend to play around with it. I haven't had any time. What are your thoughts so far on it? Anything groundbreaking? I kind of like this display with the giraffe here. But we'll see. Even if you start, just to kind of shift gears just back on that point for the New York City real estate market for a second. If you study the history in New York City, it's a very, very cyclical city. It's a very, very cyclical city. And It has its ups, it has its downs, but New York City always bounces back. And I think that is no different this time. So I think the people who have been buying through this little bit of a cyclical depression we've been having in New York in terms of the valuations of some of these properties, I think you're going to be rewarded. FB says, Tom, hey Tom, do you think Bitcoin will hit 100,000? About 4 months ago, I gave my Bitcoin price target to everybody for free. If you scan the QR code on the screen, punch in your email before Bitcoin broke out of that cup with handle base crossing 72,000, I gave the first intermediate term price target. And if you want to be updated a little bit more on the crypto markets, Thursday, which is tomorrow, I'm going to be sending out our next edition of the Behind the Street newsletter. So everything is in there. So, I mean, we've been really almost kind of hammering on Bitcoin and almost to the point of ad nauseum. So Bitcoin is my first price target's right around 105,000 on this breakout. That's what I'd say. Quinn says, Tom, you are misled. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Time will tell. But yeah, I mean, this breakout that we've been talking about on Bitcoin specifically is very reminiscent on the monster breakout in gold that we were paying attention to over 1900, right? So those multi-decade cup with handle bases, when they break out, you know, it's really off to the races. Now, gold has actually corrected a little bit, and we've broken below the 50-day moving average on gold. I think a good buying opportunity for gold would be right at the 200-day moving average. You know, once you kind of have these big breakouts, your first correction to a major moving average sets up a very, very good risk-reward profile. So you could probably go after gold right at the 200-day moving average and put a stop, like a 5% stop. I'm still very bullish on gold. As you know, extremely bullish on Bitcoin. And what is the market telling us, right? What is the market telling us? Why are precious metals doing so well? Why is Bitcoin doing so well? And we've mentioned this before, and it was interesting because one of you sent me a clip of Michael Novogratz, who is the CEO and founder of Galaxy Digital. I believe his company is publicly traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange. But there was a clip, a little bit of an excerpt on his podcast. I think it's the Business Unlimited podcast with Mike Novogratz. And he said, look, the market right now does not believe that a former real estate guy, well, still current real estate guy, Trump, who is essentially known for building his business on debt. And I'm not saying that in a negative context at all, but most real estate guys you meet, they use a lot of leverage, right? They like leverage. They like debt. That's pretty much the real estate business. If you're like a private equity guy, if you're a real estate guy, you're like a debt person, which is fine. Maybe not the most appropriate person to be running things now that we have $35 trillion national debt. I'm not saying that's my opinion. I'm saying that's the market's opinion. And as of now, it's the bond market's opinion too. You continue to see the yield on the 10-year U.S. Treasury creep up. You see Bitcoin breaking out, finite money supply. You see precious metals breaking out. Maybe that's the market telling us or signaling to us that we could have another wave of inflation. Who knows? So I think it's, still appropriate to be long those assets. Just assets in general, right? Assets in general. Now, speaking of inflation, we did get the inflation report out today, CPI. I think the biggest eye-catching thing for me about the report was honestly pretty much nothing. It's to be expected, inflation is steadily coming down, but the shelter component continues to make up the vast majority of the overall move up in inflation. And with these rate cuts, even though they're not really reflected in the bond market yet. Maybe that'll help a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's a supply and demand problem, and things are still expensive. You had food was up a little bit year over year. I think energy was about flat. So we'll see. I think the biggest question, maybe I'll ask the audience, what are your thoughts on a round 2 wave of inflation? Do you think it's going to happen or not happen? Hey, what's up, Paul? Good to see you. Michael says, I think I saw Nancy Pelosi here in Columbia. Hold on, let me fix my chat. I think there's something wrong with the chat. Benny Hanna says, if tariffs happen, inflation will absolutely happen. Terry says, it's worrisome. Yes. John says, I just don't see prices going down. Someone says, I'm not. Oh, Stephen Bates says, Tom, you're right on Galaxy Digital. Kimberly says, thanks for your opinions. Juan Fernandez is not a Bitcoin fan. Buffett doesn't like it either. Interesting. Kevin says, I think inflation is going to go up and down. Potentially bounce around like a ball. Maybe. I don't know. I think generally speaking, obviously, we could actually have a good visual here. If you type $CPI in the chat, it's going to bring you to the infographic where it'll show you the a 12-month look back of headline CPI and core CPI. Now, headline CPI peaked at 9.1%, and it's since collapsed to what, 2.6? Is that the reading we got, 2.6 or 2.4? I can't remember. So the headline number, inflation is really, really collapsed. The rate of acceleration upwards. Gas prices have come down. That is true. I think you had a lot of political rhetoric about, runaway inflation and, a dozen eggs are like $12. And we had this conversation. I've never really experienced that. I think you had like a very big pop of prices going up, and then things have settled down, but the rhetoric about inflation never came down. The rhetoric about inflation inflated and never deflated. Where I think inflation matters most is the big ticket items, right? Shelter, insurance, health insurance, healthcare. In my life anyway, right, I won't speak for anybody else, but in my life personally, that is where I'm taking the biggest beating. Is in, I guess you could even consider, if you want, any expense is a tax, any expense is, inflation. My property taxes have gone up. My homeowner's insurance have gone up. I'm sure many of you have auto insurance that have gone through the roof, right? So that's where I really see the inflation, right? Food, I live in the most expensive cities in America, so I'm always going to get ripped off, right? But the big items is crazy. Health insurance is absolutely nuts. If you work for yourself in the United States, generally speaking, it's only worth it to get health insurance if like something cataclysmic happens to you, right? That's the only time your health care is actually going to pay off. But if you pay out of pocket for everything, it's probably worth it. If you go to the doctor, $250 here. If you have to buy a prescription, some medicine, if you're relatively healthy, it's a few $100s there. But, if you step out in front of this Big Mac truck on Fifth Avenue and you get squashed, well, that's when you're going to need the insurance. But the likelihood of that happening is lower, right, or relatively low. But it's really, really crazy. I'm sure many of you, if you're self-employed, you know exactly what I'm talking about with health insurance premiums just being absolutely insane. That's why if you're going to be an entrepreneur, maybe you could find a partner, a husband or a wife who works at a big corporation that you can go under their health insurance, because it is very, very expensive. It is crazy expensive. Hey, what's up, JD? Cheers. Carl Roth says, Tom, come to Canada. Healthcare is free. I really do like the United States, but Carl, I will be in Canada later next year. Terry says, one catastrophic event. For sure. Steve Areno says, I noticed it at Aldi's instead of $3. Most things are $4 now. Juan Fernandez, Tom, do you like the Cybertruck? I do not like the Cybertruck. I love the Cybertruck. Paul says, wait until the kids come, and then it will be a necessity, especially if they love skateboarding, for sure. Kevin says, Tom, what do you think is going to happen with health insurance in the long run? And I don't know if my chat is messed up. Give me just 1 second. I want to reset something. Anyway, back to your question. I've sort of just, I guess I have come to terms with the fact that everything is going to go up in perpetuity, right? I don't trust the government to do anything about it. I don't trust the Trump administration to do anything about it. I don't trust the Biden-Harris administration to do anything about it. So the only solution, right, to outrun the inflation, and it may seem like a little harsh, but it is a reality. You just got to make more money and you got to invest more money. That's really it. I mean, you can't. I think we've all come to the point, right, where you shouldn't be, hanging your hat on some politician making a new policy, passing a new law to bring the expenses down in your life. You just got to make more money. You got to invest more money so you can beat that hurdle rate. Right, you should be calculating your personal inflation rate, and then you should be tracking your investments to see what do you have to beat. So if your personal inflation rate is 7%, 10% a year, well, that's your hurdle, right? You got to get over that. Like your assets, the valuation of everything you have, investments, you need to beat that number, or else essentially the purchasing power is diminishing and declining every year. And the value of the US dollar has lost 99% of its value already, on its way to zero. All fiat currencies over time will trend towards zero. So you just got to invest your money. You've got to put your money to work in order to kind of beat that hurdle. Healthcare is going to go up regardless. I think over time, real estate assets will continue to go up regardless. So we just have to, invest our money. Peter says you have to invest and get a greater return than the annual inflation rate so you don't fall behind. Absolutely, indeed. Hey, what's up, Jules? Good to see you. Cheers. Hey, Brad's Brain. What's going on? Hopefully you're doing well. We had a monster breakout on Palantir. And we also had a monster breakout on Kava after its earnings report. But it closed at the dead low of the day today. but that has been a monster stock too. This is Saks Fifth Avenue. It looks like they're putting up the Christmas windows, but there's going to be no main display this year, unfortunately, because there's no sponsor. Paulie says, regardless of how you look at inflation, the Fed will do what's best for them. I mean, I think we just need to look at the writing on the wall. The more responsibility you could put on yourself, the better, right? At least that's how I think about it. I just automatically, by default, expect, right? Keyword is expect the government to fail me, right? I expect the government to do the wrong thing for the people. I expect the Federal Reserve to continue to, devalue and debase our currency. So it's up to you to, make more money, invest more money. Essentially don't wait on somebody else, right? You have to take complete ownership and complete control of your situation. And if the government does the right thing, then you'll be pleasantly surprised. That's kind of the way I think about it. So I'll wait to be pleasantly surprised, but until then, I'm going to continue to, try to increase my income as much as possible. And that's really about it. Mean Hornets is your thoughts on Tom Lee and his advice on stocks. I think Tom Lee's a great guy. I think he's a great analyst. And I'm a big fan of his company. That's my thoughts on Tom Lee. Big fan of Tom Lee. Terry says, did you see those cabinet picks? I actually didn't. I mean, things have been so crazy for me. I haven't really been paying attention. I saw who's going to be in charge of the border, but that's really about it. I think Matt Gaetz is appointed to something, but I just really didn't have enough time to dig deep into it. I mean, the real estate market in New York City, like I said at the very beginning of the stream, it's like a frenzy out there right now. I don't know what happened, I don't know what clicked. I really do believe it's the election. But people feel confident in investing money and buying property in New York. I think this may be the biggest month, knock on wood, we will have for our team. It's just been crazy. Millions and millions of dollars in contract signed, deposits secured, everything. From people who we've been hammering all year to make a move. Boom, overnight, it was like a green light. So it is, it's been quite impressive. And Cosmo's asking, let's see what's up, Cosmo? This is the demand you're seeing from foreigners. A lot of domestic. I just did a deal with, two young people who were, in kind of playing with the idea of should I buy, should I rent, should I buy, should I rent. They have a trust. They're a nice couple. They're like, we have these concerns, XYZ concern about the safety and the crime, which in New York City, we're not really allowed to talk about, by the way, which I think is crazy. I mean, the real estate laws here are nuts. We're not really allowed to talk about crime. We're not allowed to talk about schools, nothing. Essentially, we just have to tell the client, do your own research. So, there's only so much I could say, but I can tell you with 100% certainty that safety comes up a lot, right? Because, put yourself in a buyer's shoes. They're in their late 20s. They're family planning. Maybe they want to have a kid. They're thinking about what school they're going to send them to. They're thinking about, what their morning routine is going to look like with their kids. If they're going to walk them to school by themselves or have the nanny do it. Safety is a big concern, whether you like it or not. That's just the reality, right? I'm not trying to be political. And I think with this, Trump victory, from the dollar signs that are moving around and the activity that's picked up in the market, it's people's belief that things are going to get a little bit safer. law and order is going to be restored. Maybe it's a coincidence. I don't know, but I don't usually believe in coincidences. Cruz, so you have to say no comment, do your own research. With the real estate laws in New York, we can't. We could just say, I would just refer to, your local precinct. We're not allowed to talk about public schools. Like, you're just not allowed to do it. It is what it is, which is crazy because, again, going back to, let's say if you're a first-time home buyer, right? You want to buy in Manhattan and you're planning to have a kid. What are the obvious questions you would ask your realtor, right, or your real estate agent? Hey, is this neighborhood safe? What do you think about the neighborhood? Tell me a little bit about it. Tell me a little bit about the public schools. We're thinking about having children. Duh. Of course. What do you want me to say? So it puts us between a rock and a hard place because essentially it comes off as you're gaslighting these people, right? And people know when you're gaslighting them. But hopefully, that will change too. It is my belief that you have a fiduciary duty to your client, and that involves letting them know, the horrors that circle around the block. That's just my view. But I guess I'll answer the question by asking you all a question. Right, let's do a hypothetical scenario, okay? Again, hypothetical, this isn't real. If I was showing you an apartment you really, really liked, and you came by once or twice, you saw it, during the day, but I knew that at nighttime, there was significant crime there. It turned into like a heroin den after 8 p.m., and I didn't disclose that to you, and I sold you that property, would you feel like I did something unethical? Yes or no? Now, I would think yes, right? If I was the agent on the deal and you only came to see it during the day, but I knew that the neighborhood was in significant decline at night, but I didn't tell you about it and I still sold it to you, I think I'm not being fully transparent with the customer. That's just my opinion. We're not allowed to say anything in New York. Yeah, so I'm reading the comments, and overwhelmingly, everyone seems to agree. Everyone tends to agree. So, I mean, that's just one example of kind of the backwardsness here in New York City, and they justify it by saying, we don't want any discrimination based upon neighborhood. We don't want any, discrimination based upon XYZ. But look, it is what it is. And, anyway, guys, check this out. Radio City Music Hall. Looks stunning here. Joel PM's due diligence is on the buyer. They have the freedom to do their own research, in my opinion. For sure, but let's say if I'm representing a buyer. I don't know, maybe I'll switch the conversation because this impacts my work. David says, what about Miami? Is it the same? Well, no, it would be under Florida law, so no. I love this corner during the holidays. Hey, what's up, Shane? Thank you so much for your $2 donation. Appreciate it. It says, can you zoom down to the Trade Center? We will. Indeed, we will. Diane says, hey, Tom, in Arizona, we were forbidden to share that information, so I always encourage to get a police report for that area. It always worked out better for them and me. Yeah, that's kind of what we tell them too, but what I tell people And we talk about the real estate business on the live stream, right? The live stream doesn't really have anything to do with my business. So, I tell you guys what I think is best practice. And in my view, and this is what I did when I bought my property, if you want to go, especially if you're buying it as an investment, like an investment property, you should probably live in the neighborhood that you're going to buy for at least a month or two, right? Get a little Airbnb, make sure you walk the neighborhood at all hours of the day, right? Or if you live in the suburbs, maybe drive it, right? Get up at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, just park the car on the side of the road and just observe stuff. See what's going on. Is there any sketchy activity? Whatever it is, you should be observing, living, breathing, and knowing about the neighborhood at all hours of the day. Now, in Florida, particularly in Miami, what I would do is I wouldn't go see properties, generally speaking, when the weather is beautiful, right? The best time to kind of drive the streets around where you're going to buy a property in Miami-Dade County, corroborating that information with the flood maps, well, then that's really good. Because even though you're not technically in a flood zone, anybody from Miami could really attest to this. If we just have one really, really hard dumping rain, some streets are underwater, other streets are not. Maybe all the way at the corner of this street, it'll be totally underwater all the way up to the storefronts, but on the other side, it'll be dry, right? You need to know every single little thing about it. So you should be driving it 24/7, 365, visiting those neighborhoods in all types of inclement weather. Essentially you want to be an expert. Because if you're going to park, $500,000, $1 million, $5 million on a plot of land, you kind of want to know where the money is going to go, right? So that's kind of my view there. Hey, what's up, 10 Red Bluff? Cheers. Ben says I'm in Miami with 7 out of 10. Well, I'll be in Miami soon. Hey, Trinidad, cheers to you. Says, hey, Tom, I guess now Elon Musk may become the richest man on Earth. I think he already is the richest man on Earth. Or do you mean he may become a trillionaire? Or the net worth of $1 trillion? I would agree. Which is wild. Think about that for a second. We're about to have one person, right? Not a country, not a GDP of a little small country. One individual is probably going to be worth $1 trillion. I can't even get my head around that number. That's so ridiculous. Cosmos says, people say Putin is richer. Who knows? That's true. Now, people also say that some of the Saudi royal families are the richest people on earth because I guess they don't have to report their income and they don't have to report their net worth. So quite literally, those royal families from Saudi could be worth $2 or $3 trillion. Just nobody knows. That's a good point. I heard that about Putin too. He's probably definitely up there. Yeah, Funky Child says 1,000 billion. I wish. Con I Am says, if the water level was rising, why is the Statue of Liberty not underwater? Well, I think the water level is rising, but just because the water level rises doesn't necessarily mean the Statue of Liberty has to be submerged in water. Now, New York City just recently built a huge flood wall right in Red Hook, Brooklyn. And if you go to Red Hook, Brooklyn, right near the ferry that'll take you to Wall Street, you'll see the high water line where the water came from Hurricane Sandy. And it's crazy. I think it was almost 6 feet of water. So if you were standing right where you're supposed to get the ferry during Hurricane Sandy, the water would be over most people's heads. That's insane to think about. Hey, 10 Red Buff, thank you so much for your very generous $3 donation. I appreciate it. Now, speaking of Miami and sea level rise, if you've watched any of our standalone walking videos in Miami, all up and down Collins Avenue. I'd say from Mid Beach, Indian Creek Drive, down to South Beach. That's all brand new seawall. And they've elevated the entire thing. And they've done that because whenever they had the king tides, it's called the king tides down there, the water would come up and over Collins Avenue and go onto the street. So now they have brand new seawall down there, and it looks pretty nice too. Middle-aged grind, cheers. Ninas's Iranian families are buying homes in Argentina. I didn't know that. Interesting. You know, there's a lot of people from Argentina in Miami, and there's also a lot of Brazilians too. Fisher Island, which is a very, very wealthy place in Miami, there's a ton of Brazilians there. Larry Adams says the seawall isn't high enough. I'd say on most parts of Collins, it seems to be pretty high enough. Let's walk over to Hell's Kitchen. Roberts has quit building houses right next to the ocean. Well, here's the thing. When you're rich and have what I like to call FU money, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's kind of like what just happened in California when you had some of those homes literally get washed into the ocean. I mean, these like $50, $60 million homes, like this on the side of the cliff, falling off. I mean, these people are the top 1% of the 1%. So they're willing to incur that risk to enjoy their life. Having a house in California where it's beautiful weather, 24/7, 365, right on the beach, right? So it's a little bit of a different concept for them. Just like Nancy Pelosi, right? Nancy Pelosi's probably worth, $200 million. She bought a nice house in Florida right on the water. If it floods and the home gets washed away, she just strokes a check for, 50, 60 mil. She gets a new one. It's not a big deal. So long as you have super wealthy people, you're going to have people living right on the water. Right? Just look at Star Island in Miami. I think that's where Tom Brady lives. That's where Carl Icahn has his huge estate. So for a tail risk event that may happen once every 6 years, once every 7 years, they could afford to eat that cost. They could afford it. Nina says, my new office is in Malibu. Peeps living there pay for the beauty. Yeah, Malibu, California, my God. Amazing. Amazing. Now, if I had unlimited money, I'd probably live there too, right? It's the best climate anywhere. Do I run the risk of, and even other parts of California too, where it's beautiful, and some of the homes are at risk of, getting taken out by a wildfire, unfortunately. But would I still probably have a house there, assuming I had unlimited money? Yeah, the answer is probably yes, to be quite honest. That's regardless of the insane taxes in California, because at some point, when you're so wealthy, it's like money is used as utility. And if I'm not going to use my money to enjoy it and be happy, what's the point of having it? So I think that's my thesis as to why people still buy homes right on the ocean, right? They could afford it. It's your risk. It's your money. You take the risk. If you have a huge storm surge that comes out and wipes out your home, that's the risk you take. But they're willing to take that risk because they could just maybe build another one. Yeah, earthquakes too. Now there's some tower in San Francisco that's quite literally sinking into the ground because it was built kind of over the bay. And so they had to do some creative engineering to pump the water from under to kind of make the building level again. I think that was next to Salesforce Tower, right? Ben says Millennium Tower. Terry says it's leaning. Adam says, hey Tom, Bel Air is an extremely high fire zone and has majority hillside issues, but some of my biggest projects are there. You know, that's another good point. Extreme fire risk. You know, they're built right on the hillsides there, but people just love the climate. They love the weather. It's perfect weather. I think I always told this story a million times, but I have a really, really good friend who has FU money, and he's a very conservative guy. This is like the most Trump guy you would ever meet in your entire life. Like, I'm a conservative, but I'm not like a full diehard MAGA. This guy is like over the top, but he says, Tom, I will never leave California. He's like, where I live, it is safe. It has the most beautiful weather, the most beautiful climate you could ever imagine in the history of the world. And I will eat and incur all the taxes, and I don't care. And I'm like, fair. That's fair. And he'll deal with all the wildfire smoke, all the natural disaster risk, because 90% of the year, it's absolutely picture perfect beautiful in California, which is true. Oh, look at this. This is a nice Cybertruck. Robert says, Tom, there are 3 seasons in California: fire, flood, and drought. Cosmos says you love it in black. Yeah, this thing looks amazing in black, this Cybertruck. But it is kind of a little sad because, you know, the state of California is such a beautiful state, and it's also such an economic powerhouse. The state of California is one of the most prosperous economies in the entire world. I'll say that again. California is one of the largest and most prosperous economies in the world, not just the United States. But yeah, it seems like, you know, every other year it's like we're suffering from an extreme drought. Then it's like we have this massive rainstorm that makes these, you know, landslide floods. Then you have the wildfires. But most of the time, right, the overwhelming majority of the time, it's really, really beautiful there. Someone says Laguna Beach, California is the best. Laguna Beach, where is that? Is that near LA? So if you had unlimited money, you would pick Laguna Beach, California to live. What is it, 75 degrees, beautiful all year? Nina says no, Orange County, California. Someone says yes, and California is thinking about leaving the Union. I think that's all nonsense. When people talk about seceding from the United States, that's crazy. Dino says, Tom, Manhattan Beach, California is nice. Ben says unlimited is more like Woodside and Orange County for sure. Joel PM says Laguna is sweet, little artsy beach town. Oh, Dookie says it's right between LA and San Diego. That's my bucket list spot for California. And I've said this many times. When I get to California, that's where I want to go. I want to go to San Diego. A buddy of mine is a TACP, TACP in the Air Force, and he had to do some training thing with the Special Forces. I think it was the Navy SEALs. and he spent a lot of time in San Diego, and he says, if I had the money, I'd be living in San Diego, California. So whenever I do have the time, I will be going to San Diego, checking it out. It doesn't look like they're making any movement on this building here. Andrew Donovan says, I think Laguna Beach has one of the strongest footholds in the state. Brian says Palm Beach, Florida. I love Florida. Big Miami guy. I would say depending on who you talk to, though, the downside about Florida is it's very humid. It's like a swamp. For me personally, I love that. I have no problem with that at all. But for the vast majority of people out there, they would probably prefer the California weather where it's not as humid, quite moderate, 75, low humidity. They would much rather prefer that type of climate than, an August summer day in Miami or Palm Beach when it's 80 degrees out, 85 degrees, and 100% humidity. Cynthia Avis says can't take the humidity. I mean, again, I'm weird. I like it. I really, really like it. Jamie says, good evening, Tom and chat. San Diego, Santa Barbara, and Hawaii for me personally. I know, Brad says, little red in my portfolio today. What the hell? I thought everything just went up. I think intraday we had Bitcoin hit 92,000, 93,000, something crazy. Gold has significantly pulled back, but I actually think you'll probably have a buying opportunity for gold at the 200-day moving average. But the S&P, if you look at the S&P, it is very extended here. It is very extended, but, you never know. Hey, what's up, Trade Brigade? Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. We're about to cross over to New York City's Hell's Kitchen. Here on 8th Avenue, 46th Street, this is going to be the Torch. This is a new Xtel development. It's going to be a hotel, and there's also going to be a drop ride attraction. TK Porsche, Tom, have you already discussed your X post on ARC? I think I already forget what I posted about ARC. Was I just doing the Wyckoff accumulation distribution on ARC? Is that the one you're talking about? Guys, you all remember this live stream when we were videotaping this bus, and this guy stood up and he hammered his head on the street sign? I thought they put that bus out of commission since that accident we caught on film. But if that's what you're talking about, yeah, if you go and look at a monthly chart of ARK, right, ticker symbol ARKK, it had a massive blow off top in 2021, and it's come down, 4%, I think, from peak to trough. And now it looks like it's in a massive reaccumulation pattern, and I think it's trying to break out from its stage 1 base. And I think it broke out yesterday or today. Brad's brain says, Tom, you and me like the same weather. Don't get it. They love to ask me if I regret moving to Houston. Yeah, look, the hotter the better. The hotter and more humid, the happier I am, generally speaking. I don't know what it is. That's why I think I do really well in Singapore. Apparently, for anyone who's ever been to Singapore, maybe we have some people who are watching from Singapore, Singapore is worse and more humid than Miami. Andrew says Palo Alto Network should buy CyberArk. Doc Sevens' NVIDIA earnings coming up. That's true on the 20th. NVIDIA is going to be the final company in the Magnificent Seven to report earnings. And I think NVIDIA just announced some sort of a partnership with a nuclear power company to provide AI services for them. All right, we got the light. Let's cross the street. Looks like something's getting out here. Maybe it's an off-Broadway show. Look at that. Tons of people coming out. JD says, how much is FU money? I don't know. Well, I guess it depends on how much money you spend a year. I mean, think about it like this. If you can make a conservative draw and cover all of your living expenses and then some on, I would say, a 5% annual rate of return without ever touching the principal, then I think you probably got it, right? And then maybe have some cash set aside if you have to deal with a major legal issue, something like that. But generally speaking, that's probably that amount. Where if you own your home, and if you own a couple rental properties, and then the liquidity you have, can generate 5% a year, and that 5% a year can just pay for all of your expenses and then some, you can kind of call it a day, so to speak, maybe. I mean, think about if you have $50 million, and even if you wanted to take no risk on that, and you just park it in a money market account, and it's going to spit off 5% a year. That's an absurd amount of money. Now, speaking of cybersecurity, Checkpoint Software is also a very good company. It's an Israeli company, actually. I interviewed there a few years back for a channel manager position. Nina says, Tom, when you say legal issues, that's when I come in. Someone says 2.5 million ain't a lot in New York City. I mean, it's all relative. $2.5 million is a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And you can definitely live in New York City on $2.5 million. Now, are you going to be going, to buy Tiffany jewelry every day? Are you going to be buying Rolex watches every day? No. But if you're just a normal, depends on your lifestyle. You're going to be going to Nobu every day and blowing it out. You're getting bottle service. No. That's a lot of money. You can live very, very nicely here. It's also important to note, right? When people say, $1 million isn't a lot in New York City, people tend to forget there's a huge portion of the New York City population that lives below the poverty line. I think people need to, kind of give a quick refresher there. There's a lot of poor in New York City, right? And there's a lot of people, that live here and they make, maybe it's a couple and they make a combined income of $100,000, $150,000. They still manage to do it. So if you have $2.5 million, you could live very nicely here. Oh, there was a UFC ad here, but now it's some perfume ad. So I guess John Jones is going to fight again. I didn't know. I thought he retired, John Jones. Carlos is all about how you budget and invest your money. Well, here's the thing. $2.5 million. If you let that compound out over 60 years, that's going to be a hell of a lot of money, right? It's all about duration. I mean, I think the most important thing and the most encouraging thing, in my view, if you look at a chart of Warren Buffett's net worth, he made the vast majority of his billions in the last third of his life, right? You could just Google this or go on Perplexity AI or whatnot. Look at a chart by age of Warren Buffett's net worth. You know, that really goes to show the power of compound interest, right? Huge, huge. So I would say be patient and invest over time, and you'll be more than fine. Andrew O'Donovan's is the Wall Street Journal, good reference on Buffett. Someone says, someone I know in New York City about 30 million net worth, and he said he's struggling because the burn is higher than income generating. Well, I mean, if you're keeping up with the Joneses and you're, sending your kid to, an $80,000 a year preschool, which, by the way, that may sound like I'm joking. No, there's some preschools and elementary schools that are private that these people send their kids to that are like $75,000, $80,000 a year. I don't get it, but yeah, I mean, if you have a net worth of $30 million and you're spending $2, $3, $4 million a year, then of course you're going to have problems. But the money is not the problem. That's you are the problem, right? You want to live like Tony Stark, that's on you. But I think as a blanket statement to say that if you have a $30 million net worth and it's so difficult to live in New York City, that's just ridiculous, right? That's, that's crazy. You can live in you could buy, a nice condo or even rent a condo for, let's say, $30,000 a month, right on Billionaires Row, beautiful view of Central Park, and not even touch the principal per year with a $30 million net worth. So I think that's more of a money management issue. Yeah, that's true. That's a really good point. ESEP says the $80K a year preschool is to connect. Yeah, it's all a big networking thing, I suppose. Especially like some of those boarding schools. That's really one of the main benefits of an Ivy League school too. I mean, you're going to get a great education, but also it's great for networking because that's where very, very wealthy and successful people go. So it's really good for networking. That's a good point. It's a really good point. All right, everybody, here we are, 42nd Street, Times Square. That's crazy. Kathleen's is you probably have to sign up on a waiting list for those pricey preschools before they're even born. That's another good point too. Hey, what's up, Carrie? This is when you get back to South Florida. I'm going to be there the day after Thanksgiving. I'm going to be flying back to Miami. I got a few things to do over there. And hopefully we close a monumental deal there. Fingers crossed. I'm working on a very, very interesting and fun deal in Sunny Isles Beach. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that'll be a good, maybe that'll be the Santa Claus rally for me this year. Who knows?
sir. What do you want?
Now, at the beginning of the live stream, one of the main things that we've been talking about, anecdotally a little bit, was I said deal activity and deal flow and business has picked up significantly post-election. It's almost like screamed back in a way that I never expected. Now, is anybody else in any other industry, right? It could be finance, it could be anything. It could be real estate. Do you see things picking up for you? I mean, are your clients more comfortable with making a decision now that the election is over than before? Just to reiterate, in my case, the answer is a resounding yes. People that I've been chasing down for months, to make an offer, to make this investment, it's just been like a tidal wave flowing in. It kind of reminds me of a tsunami, right? First the water goes out, and then it all comes rushing back in. I feel like that's exactly what's been going on. Larry Adams says, my suppliers tell me yes. Let me read some of these. Accept says, hey Tom, I worked in oil and gas throughout the nation. After Trump, the business went crazy. Dookie says, I think most people want to be rich these days to just brag. Yeah, maybe there's a lot of ego stuff to be involved for sure. Nina says yes. Nina says Arizona is popping with sales now as well. Jay says I agree 100%. Let's see if we have any others. Dennis, Tom, there is still a lot of cash sitting on the sidelines for exactly this outcome. Rich says, hey Tom, my wife works for an oil and gas company and they are extremely optimistic. Ren 1018 says, I'm in law and it's been good all year. TK Porsche's wave of optimism, post-election consumer confidence climbing. Tone says big sales increase at Home Depot since election passed. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really do believe most people think it's going to be a better business environment. I think maybe more specifically with the real estate market in some of these bluer cities, they're more comfortable with making an investment because they have a perception about safety here, and they deem that perception is going to improve. Ooh, the wind is brutal here. We're going to take one lap around the Bryant Park Winter Village, but we have Bank of America Tower just off to our left. Pineapple Water says if you're into oil and gas, the pipelines and refineries are probably going to be doing well. Here we are outside of Mark Benioff's Salesforce Tower. Ben, this is BNY Mellon. I'll be down there soon, actually. BNY Mellon. I'm working on an interesting deal. If you guys want to look it up, 70 Little West Street. So there's a parking garage in the basement. I believe it's a land lease building. So the owner of the garage, we submitted an application with the AG, the Attorney General, to sell individual licenses, like parking licenses, because you can't do deeded sales, unfortunately. So that valet garage, they want to convert each space essentially what they want to do is they want to get out of the valet business. They don't want to be responsible for running and operating a daily park or a monthly park garage. They want to go to all their clients and say, hey, you can just do a one-time buyout for $175,000 and now you own your license, and it's a transferable license. And more garages are doing that, so hopefully that deal will be signed soon. So if anybody's in Manhattan and you're looking for parking in Lower Manhattan, it's a very nice building, super clean. The garage is nice too. Each space, we're going to start at $175,000, so $175,000 a space. Hey, Shane, Football Life, good to see you. Says I see the World Trade Center. Yeah, it's a pretty clear night, even though it's a little bit blustery. But you're right, you can see the Trade Center all the way down 6th Avenue. I think the Bryant Park Winter Village closed. Yeah, it's closed, but it still looks good. Benz's exotic vehicle space that is secure as big money. Yeah, I mean, you would be very surprised. There is a market. It's very, very niche, but there are people in this city that have crazy monster car collections, and they look for kind of niche deals like this, to buy in bulk. Maybe they'll buy like a section of the garage and they'll just winterize their supercars. Like Seinfeld, Jerry Seinfeld has an unreal collection of cars, and he bought out an entire garage on 83rd Street. I actually used to work right across the street from his garage. This was when I was a teenager, and I would watch him filming that TV series, the Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. That's where it is. It's 83rd Street in between Amsterdam and Columbus Avenue. It's a sick garage. It's unreal. He probably has, my God, probably $20 million worth of cars there. Something with comedians and their love of vehicles. Jay Leno, I think, is another one that has like a crazy, insane car collection. I think it's Jay Leno. Someone says, what is the average New York City property tax on an owned parking space? It really depends on the deal. It depends on the tax lot. But, I've sold spaces that have a $35 a month tax bill, and I've sold spaces that have a $340 a month tax bill. It really, really just depends. And to be honest, it's a very, very high margin business. It really, really is. Kind of the way I think about it is kind of how we explain crowdedness. In the hedge fund business, if everybody's running the same strategy, if everybody is looking at the same trade, the likelihood you're going to generate alpha from that is rather low. So one of the things that we've thought of is, every team out there, every broker out there wants to sell a big penthouse at Central Park Tower, or wants to get the listing at or wants to get a listing at 15 Central Park West. But there's a lot of very, very small, private equity shops that usually just do off-market transactions and they go direct. But if you can go to them and say, hey, I'll sell parking spaces for you, you're going to pay full rack rate for the fee. They would much rather hire somebody to go out and sell that than have themselves go running around making calls and, busting their ass to do it. So kind of niche market, something that nobody wants to do, right? Most brokers in Manhattan want the ego, want the pedigree of saying, hey, I'm on this ultra, luxury listing, which is great, But if you can collect a 6% fee on a $54 million sellout, just do the math. I'll do that all day. Oh wow, TK Porsche says Jay Leno owns 5 warehouse buildings, all in a row, at the Van Nuys Airport. Well over 200,000 square feet full of collectible cars. The collection is worth at least $100 million. Holy crap. Could you imagine having a car collection worth $100 million? Now, here's another interesting question. Do you think that Jay Leno is in the top 10 of the most valuable car collections in the world? Do you think he even cracks the top 10? What do you think? Shell's boys and their toys. Well, you'd actually be surprised. One of my clients who purchased a large bulk of spaces in Manhattan, you would never ever know that she's like a super car addict, but she knows everything about every type of car, has an insane collection of supercars, and it's like this little teeny 5'5" white lady. It's hilarious. So I think both men and women have the car bug, some of them. I don't understand it. I'm not a big car guy, but Larry Adams says, Tom, the Saudis also have a massive collection in Mississippi. Now, classic cars is just a good niche in general. Classic cars, supercars. If you have, if you make like a blog website or a car review website or a YouTube channel, that is a very good niche to be in. If you have any type of expertise about cars, particularly classic cars, supercars, you could probably make a full running business on that by yourself. Create a Substack, do car reviews. You probably have, several multi-million-dollar business just off of that. I would say the same thing with boats. Maybe the yacht and the boating niche is a little bit smaller in terms of the TAM. I would assume, and maybe it's never appropriate to assume, that the vehicle niche is probably a little bit bigger. Look at this. This is Macy's, Herald Square. Looks quite nice. Crypto Meme says, I live in Mississippi and haven't heard of that collection being here. Hey, what's up, MD? We're talking about comedians and their vehicle collection.
Yeah.
Derek says Ralph has a car collection, $600 to $700 million. Whew. Cosmos says, Tom, what is my dream car? I don't know. I'm just not really a big car guy. Like, if somebody gave me like a very expensive like Lamborghini or something, I really wouldn't even know what to do with it. I'm just not even into it. So I'm going to be boring and say a Cybertruck. I mean, if somebody gave me a Cybertruck, I'd probably be thrilled. I think if you're gonna, I think you just have to be into it, if that makes sense. If you love cars, if you love, the craftsmanship, the engineering about it. But I'm just not into that stuff. I can see why people are into it, though. Look at this. This is the Macy's windows. Pretty soon they're going to be unveiled. Oh, look at this. No peeking. Come see the magic November 21st. So just before Thanksgiving, we're going to get the windows. Hey, what's up, Kamani? Says I'm the same as you. I'm glad there are other people like me out there. I'm not a car guy. As long as it's solid and reliable and gets me to where I need to go, for sure. I mean, I have the most fun and I have the best time when I'm just in Miami riding around on a $1,200 Vespa. That's the most enjoyable for me. Although I've never been in, a $250,000 vehicle or $1 million vehicle before. Maybe the perception will change. But it's interesting to think about because, if you're into that stuff, right? Let's say if you're a kid and you're really, really into cars, I would make a business in and around servicing ultra luxury, high-end classic vehicles. Whether it's a blog, whether it's, like a car review YouTube show, and I would just make very, very high-ticket products and services. Because chances are, if somebody could afford to buy a $250,000 car, they can afford to spend, $2,000 a year on your subscription, and maybe you have like car meetups or something. So like service the very, very high end. It's a pretty good niche. Same thing with boating. All right, let's go around to Koreatown. If you guys are enjoying the live stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video. Click the subscribe button if you're new. Hey, what's up, Paul Jackson? Welcome to Herald Square, Macy's, on this CPI inflation night. This is cool. Let's go down to the Pen 2 project. Looks like everything's pretty much put up over here. I think they did a really good job this year. Wow. These don't even look... I mean, these look like the Macy's windows, but I guess they're not. Technically they are, but... I mean, I think they look cool. This is like an advent calendar. Anybody remember advent calendars as a kid? I think they did a pretty good job. Hey, what's up, Hawaii? We're just checking out pretty much the first look, I'd say, of the Macy's windows right on 34th Street. Shells is the music coming from the wall. Yeah, the music is coming from somewhere up here. I think all the way above the Christmas wreaths. I think the main ones that a lot of people like to look at are on the other side, but those aren't going to be ready until November 21st, according to the sign. Hey, what's up, Esmeralda? This is not to get political. Okay, I'm lying, but this is political. What do you think about Trump's cabinet picks so far? To be quite honest, I haven't even had enough time. I've just been so busy, and I have to go back to the office and do more work at the office after this, probably till midnight. I haven't even had a chance to look at any. I did hear, obviously, Matt Gaetz was appointed to something, and what was the other one? The guy in charge of the borders, a pretty big hard ass too. But besides that, I haven't really seen anything. Just to be quite honest. Just haven't had the time. I know Kathleen's is so disappointed there will be no Saks Fifth Avenue Lights display this year. Wish someone with deep pockets would have bankrolled it. I said the same thing. I wish the same exact thing. It's not going to be the same. It really isn't. Because when you walk down Fifth Avenue during the holidays, Saks Fifth Avenue really lights up Fifth. It really, really does. It's going to look kind of dark. I mean, I don't know. They're still going to do the windows, but I don't know. It's just not going to feel the same. I totally agree. It's a bummer, but what can you do? Who knows? Maybe somebody will step in last minute and bankroll it. You never know. Paul says, Tommy, you're dropping the newsletter tomorrow. We will. So that's another, just a quick reminder. Everyone, tomorrow, right at the closing bell, we're going to be sending out our next issue of our investor newsletter. So keep a watch out in the email box. If you want to receive it tomorrow, you can just scan the QR code on your screen, punch in your email, and it'll take you to our Substack, which has been growing pretty exponentially. So thank you all for reading and sharing. I get a little notification every time someone shares it or reads it or opens the letter, so I appreciate it. That's going to be going out tomorrow right at the closing bell. I'm going to be talking about a lot. And thank you for all of the nice emails as well. The one thing I'll say is I've been getting a lot of thank you emails because a lot of the stuff we've been talking about, those trades have worked rather well. But it's a bull market. What I publish, the ideas won't always work out. But if you've been long Bitcoin or gold here, you're probably feeling quite well. And just generally, if you've been long the equity market that we've been quite bullish on, you're probably feeling quite well as well. Want to go down into the underworld? This is the new entrance to the Long Island Railroad. We might as well check out Vernadoville if Dock 7 is in here. This is the Plaza. I was actually in the Plaza Hotel today. They did an amazing job on their holiday display. You got Dos Toros, Shake Shack, Raising Cane's. It's nice down here. It's crazy to think that this is how low the ceilings were throughout the entire Penn Station. Right here. So at that little drop head, this is what everybody used to be walking through. Talk about claustrophobic. But now everything is really great. Let's head back up. And then right as you walk out, you have this amazing view of the Empire. Yeah, so this is all brand new. This is the new Penn 2 project. Over here is the new entrance to Madison Square Garden. I'll try to go to the wide-angle lens just so you can see it a bit better. But yeah, this is all brand new. Kind of looks futuristic. Cheese Puffs just feels safer now for sure. Absolutely, for sure, it feels a lot safer here. Look at this, John Jones. I don't even know how to pronounce that other guy's name. But I thought John Jones retired. I don't follow the UFC like a lot, but from time to time I do. Could have sworn that he retired. Miocic. adjacents as they are fighting Saturday. Wow, that means Madison Square Garden is going to be crazy, crazy Saturday. That'll be cool to kind of see that. Doc 7 says, will Trump attend? That's actually maybe a high possibility. I think he's in Mar-a-Lago with the transition team, who includes the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, by the way, too. Yeah. I'm going to start to head back uptown. Vance says, did we pass Rockefeller Center? Yeah, we walked past Rockefeller Center earlier in the broadcast. What time is it, by the way? It must be like 11:30 at night. Yeah, 11:23. Got it. Makes sense. We started really late. Andrew Donovan says, yes, sir. Howard Lutnick. Great guy. Super smart, very sharp, and very pro Bitcoin. Adam Luke's, how much more work to do tonight? Not much. I just have to generate 2 deal sheets. But I'm waiting on somebody to send me their attorney's information. Once I have that, I'm going to get it out and go home. Maybe look through a couple of charts, do a little bit of a deeper dive into Kava. Hey, what's up, Raj? Do you feel the holiday decorations have gone up late this year? I don't know if I'd say late. I'd say some of them went up earlier. Most everything went up right after Halloween. But obviously the city's going to feel a little bit less Christmassy, so to speak. Now, another interesting thing, I feel as if I can get so much more work done and extreme concentration after hours. I don't know if anybody else feels that way. Some people are morning people, some people are night owls. I'm a total night owl. I could sit at the desk till 2, 3 in the morning and just really bang things out. Especially in the office in New York City at night, 1 o'clock in the morning, maybe you get some food. You know, you could really just do deep, deep dives into things. Nobody's around. It's just the best. Ibrahim Azam, it's not like I go to sleep at 1, 2 o'clock every night. Sometimes I do if it's like a pressing issue. But I'd say most nights I'm not going to sleep at 2 a.m. Maybe about 1. I've been going to sleep really, really late. I would say over the last 1 to 2 weeks. Just because with everything that's going on, right? We've been having major moves in markets. The election that just passed. So things have been pretty much go time. Adam says, how long is your typical commute? It's like 20-minute walk. It's easy. Easy, just walk over. Now, my boss is opening up another office in upstate New York, which I probably will never be there, but I'll probably go to the grand opening in Rye, New York. RYE. And then 2025 we'll have our official office open in South Florida, which I hope to be spending the majority of my winters down there. Look at this view of the Empire State Building. Pretty cool, right? Robert says, isn't she from Rye, KJ? I think so. I think she's from there. She has family there. She had a big birthday party last year, and it was at the Rye Country Club, which was fun. At least I think that's where it was, the Rye Country Club, which was a blast. I don't know. I'm not really. I don't love it up there, but I could see why people love it. I definitely see why people love it. It's beautiful. You could still take the train to the city. It's not as crazy. It's the suburbs, and it's very, very nice. Same thing with Ossining, New York. You take the Metro North. It's right on the Hudson River. But I believe Rye is more towards Connecticut. Here we are back in Madison. Like I was cruising on that electric skateboard. TK Porsche, Tom Ryer, Scarsdale. I think Scarsdale's a little bit closer to the city. Or is Scarsdale technically the Bronx? I think I would say Scarsdale maybe, just because it's closer to the city. TK Porsches, they're nearly adjacent to each other. Yeah, I don't really know the geography too well, but I don't know. I think just spending so much time in the city, if I ever had a house kind of out in the suburbs, I just don't know what I would do. Like, I need to be able to just walk out of the apartment, walk around, interact with people, go to a coffee shop. It's kind of like in Miami, right? Technically, I live in the suburbs in Miami. My place is in what you would consider the suburbs. But I could just jump on the scooter, and in 5 minutes, I'm in Sunny Isles Beach. I'm at the beach, right? 15 minutes, I'm in North Beach. maybe 25 minutes, I'm in South Beach. 30 minutes, downtown Miami. Which is so easy to get there. So, it feels like you're living in a big city while you have the quietness, so to speak, of the suburbs. But up there, you really got to have a car to get everywhere. And everything closes early. Like Miami is one of those cities where it feels like a Friday night every night. You could go anywhere at any time of night. Things are going to be open. Someone says Miami is not a walkable city. It depends on where you are. It really depends on where you are. If you live in Brickell, it's very walkable. If you live in downtown Miami, very walkable. But if you just get a little scooter, a little Vespa, I'm all over the place. 15 minutes to get everywhere. I'm at the beach, literally 5-minute drive from my house to the beach, in which I believe is the best beach in Miami. Sunny Isles, the cleanest, the nicest. Oh, someone's talking about AI for technical analysis and the like. Did you guys see the most freaky AI video of all time with Andrew Ross Sorkin and I forget the other gentleman? But if you have an X account, head on over to Andrew Ross Sorkin's X page and look at that AI generated video of him. It's almost indistinguishable from him. So could you imagine if, maybe 5 years down the road, let's say if Andrew Ross Sorkin or Jim Cramer is sick, they can't come to the office. Could they just throw up an artificial intelligence and nobody will ever know the difference? Imagine that. Are we soon coming to a point, this is a pretty cool view of the empire, but are we soon coming to a point where we will be able to just license our personalities, our speech patterns, our speech tonality to big media companies and say, yeah, you can use my AI hologram, but you need to pay me a royalty. And then you never have to work. You just have the AI Jim Cramer doing Mad Money, or the AI Andrew Ross Sorkin. It's pretty crazy. This is the very top of One Vanderbilt. I know, Rich is like, I love it and I hate it. Mark Francis's Hollywood is for sure going to do that with actors. Well, didn't some big movie director didn't some big movie director stop investing in building out his massive media studio because he's like, I'm not even going to need any of this because I'm just going to have AI do everything for me in the future. Jack Jackson says, Tom, how do you like the environment at Douglas Elliman? I don't even notice the environment at all, to be quite honest, because, we have our own, big office section. Our team's office takes up, a majority of the floor. And it's usually only me and 2 other coworkers there. And I'm just really just working on my own stuff throughout the day. I'm watching the markets. I'm managing my own money. I'm on the phone with clients. So I don't know. I feel like the brokerage business, in terms of the residential real estate brokerage business, it's so commoditized that it's not like, you work for a tech company and then you want to work for another tech company because they may, you're selling a different software, you're selling a different product, or there's going to be a better culture. I feel like the real estate broker business is so commoditized where I don't need anything from them. Does that make sense? At least that's how I can describe it. I go there, I use the office space to run my own operation, and I honestly really never interact with almost anybody from Element. It's just I work with my boss, Kirsten, all the time. I work with Stefano, which is her husband, on some deals, like trying to find him deals to buy. Maybe if we're trying to raise money for something, I'll do that. But it's the best working relationship I've ever been a part of, because it's essentially, you could do what you want, and it's just you run your own thing, which is the best. But I mean, everybody that I've come in contact with has been pretty nice, pretty cool. This is East 40th Street in Park. Hey, what's up, Triple G? This is Andrew Ross Sorkin and Elon on stage. Was a moment to remember. That wasn't AI generated. For sure, that wasn't AI generated. Someone's saying the AI generated interactions between Trump and Biden. I believe Trump and Biden are together right now, weren't they? Doing something at the White House, I saw. Joy for Once is Tom. Have you ever watched Owning Manhattan on Netflix? I have not watched it, mainly because I don't have Netflix. I haven't watched it. I would like to watch it. I'll watch it. I just feel as if a lot of those, like, reality shows are, exactly that, quite obviously, like reality shows. I don't like, and it may sound surprising, I am a hyper introvert. I just want to do the deal. I don't want to do dog and pony show. I'm not interested in that. That's the kind of person I am. And surprisingly, my boss was on $1 Million Listing New York, right? But she is not like that at all. Like, her personality is not like, the big reality TV show personalities. She is very, very, I wouldn't say cutthroat, but she's like very serious. And I think that's why I get along with her quite well. Because she's like, you're assigned to do this. If it's not done, there's going to be a problem. If it's done, there's no problem and everything is fine. That's how I like to operate. Because I get shit done. I don't need to be handheld. And there's not, really any of the bickering between brokers like you see on TV. There's like none of that. I've never encountered that situation. So it's quite nice. I think you're right. Yeah, Adams, they kind of have to create the drama for the show for sure. I mean, I'm working a deal now with, actually, yeah. But yeah, I interact with a lot of the brokers on that show, and they're nice people. Niall, who's works for Serhant, he's a really good guy, and he's a super sharp guy. Really, really good guy. What do you guys think you like better? Look at this. Grand Central Terminal here. That beautiful original architecture. Or the new, like, One Vanderbilt style. Joyful One says, love Nile. He has a really nice townhome coming on the market. Our team's going to go preview it next week. I think it's on 18th Street, West 18th Street. It's like a really nice Chelsea townhome. It was converted from a multifamily, and it's like half complete. The family who bought it wanted to make it like their dream New York City townhome, so they converted the whole thing into single family, and it's an unbelievable place. But I think 2 of the floors are not finished yet. Yeah, Hawaii's like, fake or not, I like the show, and they show some cool apartments. The apartments are unbelievable. I mean, some of the customized apartments in the homes in New York City are honestly jaw-dropping. And I think the most interesting thing about some of the most impressive homes I've been in here is just the engineering that goes into it, like the approvals, the permitting. It's just so much work that goes into it, and it costs a hell of a lot of money, especially to do some of these customizations on some of these townhouses, like on the Upper East Side, the Upper West Side. It's crazy. It's really, really crazy. And then they'll be like, we wanted it to be our dream home, but we're going to move on and we're going to find something else. And then they just abandon it after they put like, $8 million into it. It's the craziest thing. But there's also a lot of cool spots down near like the Bowery and right in the heart of Soho, off right off of Grand Street, right off of Broome Street. Like some of those conversions like have original like olive oil presses in there, like all like very interesting millwork, because some of them are old factories, like textile factories, that they've been able to preserve some of the originality and make it into a living space. It's very, very unique. Hey, what's up? Hang with Mark, Mom. Good to see you. Yeah, Hawaii says the staging they use to sell the homes are amazing. So we work with some unbelievably talented stagers that, you could walk into an apartment, right? And it can need a lot of work. And you're like, oh my God, at this list price, it'll never sell. You bring in the stagers and it's like they work their magic. The place looks unbelievable. It is worth the money, okay? Trust me. If you're trying to sell a place in Manhattan, especially in a down market, and it has no furniture in it, spend the few $1,000s a month to have a professional stager come in, because it shows so differently. We use a company called Everset, Everset. They're really good. I think my boss is like really good friends with the owner. And then we use another company called Staged to Sell. They totally transform the place. And a lot of times, the buyer... Oh, look at this. This is a new Starbucks here. It looks like this just opened. This used to be totally vacant. Wow. And a lot of times the buyers will say, look, I love the furniture. I want it to be move-in ready. Can we buy the furniture? And then they'll just sell everything as is. Oftentimes, though, you don't really want to buy the staging furniture. They'll just give you the SKU number and you could order the exact pieces, and then they'll come in and put like new furniture in, because some of the staging furniture has been in several different apartments for years, and it's kind of nasty. So if you like the furniture there, you could just say, we want to buy this, but I don't want to buy the actual staged furniture. Just give me the SKUs, and then you come back and install everything. This is 270 Park. It looks like they're getting ready to fix the road. Did a really good job here. Repaving it, I guess. This is going to be awesome when all this construction is down. Park Avenue is going to look 10 times bigger than it is. It kind of reminds me a little bit, a little teeny bit of the Seagram building in the aspect that it's built so far away from the street. Not that it's the same architectural integrity, but just the positioning away from the street. And then here is 432 Park. It actually feels like it's warming up a bit. Oh, did you guys see Ken Griffin unloaded his Chicago penthouse at like a 50% loss? That always amazes me. You know, some of these people have so much money, they're willing to just take a bath on the apartment just because they want to get the money out. So I believe he bought 2 floors at the top of some luxury building in Chicago, and it's not even complete yet. I think he was working with the developer to do an entire custom unit, and now that he's moved the headquarters of Citadel from Chicago, Illinois to Miami, Florida, he just did a fire sale on the penthouse, and he lost 50% of its value on it. But I'm sure Ken Griffin's not sweating that at all, being that he's one of the wealthiest people on the planet. Hey, Tatted T, what's up? Good to see you. You're late. I'm late. I started really late. Yeah, someone that says it's called FU money. Now, that's why I always tell clients, right? If I'm working with a buyer and the buyer says to me, Tom, I love this property, I say, well, put in an offer on what we think it's worth. I draw up what I think it's worth, and they're like, nah, we can't present that offer. It's going to be too low. I'm like, you never know where someone's going to hit it. You never know the situation, right? Someone could just say, look, I want out of New York. I want nothing to do with it. just freaking hit it. The first offer we get, hit it. Cash close, 30 days, zero contingencies, fire sale it. You never know. That's why you put in the offer on what you think it is. Right? The worst that could happen is they say no counter, or they don't counter the offer. But in a situation like Ken Griffin, right? He was willing to let his penthouse go for 50% of what he paid for it. He probably just wants out. He doesn't care. And the buyer is probably going to do really, really good on that building. So you never know the motivation, right? You never know the motivation why someone is selling. What is the catalyst? Are they in financial trouble? Do they need the liquidity? You never know. Is it an estate sale? Is it, like a divorce where they need to sell it? All right, we're almost back. I'm not sure. If someone's asking which penthouse was it, it was in Chicago. I forget what he paid for it. But if you just Google Ken Griffin, Chicago penthouse, it'll be the first news article that come up. I think the deal just closed.